Blind auditions. What is a blind audition? Blind auditions, as a definition of them, are where the performer who is auditioning for perhaps a position in an orchestra or acceptance into a conservatory or auditioning for a competition, where they are put behind a screen to play instead of being visible to the jury. Are these a good thing or a bad thing? Hello everyone, welcome back to John Paul Piano. I thought that maybe I'd make a shorter video today about this issue because I've been thinking about this quite a lot recently. There have been a lot of things that have been going on in the news about classical music and things like that lately, and it just sort of really got me to thinking because there have been things that have occurred recently, at least within the past year or so, with things like competitions that have been brought to light, things like that, that show that perhaps they haven't been the most fair towards all of the contestants. An example of this would be the Leeds competition that occurred back, I believe it was late last year, where some of the rules for the jury, the rules that the jury have to follow, were actually sort of released. And they may have been released before that, but this was the first time that I had seen anything about this, that were saying that, you know, if there's a tie, that if there's a female contestant, she should be given priority over the male contestants and things like that. So I just thought I'd make a short video about this whole idea of blind auditions, because I was thinking, well, why don't we just have blind auditions for everything? Because I know that, at least with some, if not most, of orchestras, that for a position in the orchestra, when you audition, they are blind auditions. So the performer will perform behind a screen where those who are the jury or those who are deciding whether or not you get the position in the orchestra cannot see you, but simply can just hear you. The whole idea of this is around to help with the whole issue of things like bias and help with things like equality and things like that. And I personally think that it's a really good way to keep any potential biases from getting in the way of whether or not this person gets accepted or gets the job and things like that. So for orchestra, I mean it's already going on, at least for most of them, I think. However, for me, when I was thinking about this, I was like, okay, so this is done in orchestras, but why can't we also do this in things like competitions or in things like auditions for conservatories? You know, if you want to audition to get into a conservatory or even any regular university that has a music program, why aren't the auditions done with like blind auditions, you know? And I don't know the answer as to why this isn't really done, but I think that it should be done, especially in this day and age where things like equality and inclusion is stressed so much, which is fine. I mean, of course, you know, everyone should be given a fair chance at the same thing. So that's okay, but meaning when things like that is being stressed to such a high level, when precedence is being given to certain groups of people based off of simple like social factors or racial factors and things like that, I just think that this whole thing could be solved if we just have blind auditions for everything, because then the jury can't see who is performing. So for example, like with a competition, if it's a competition, like a pretty big competition where there's an audience, then you could have the jury behind a screen, where then the audience can still see the performer. So the performer wouldn't be behind a screen, so the audience could still see them, but this time now the jury is simply behind a screen, where they just can't see the performer, but they can still hear them. And I think that this would really solve a lot of issues, because then you can't see what color their skin is, you can't see what gender they are and things like that. And that way, then the jury can only go off of what they hear, which is the most important part, right? You know, because music is all about really what you hear for the most part. So they can still tell if they mess up or if they're being expressive enough or too technical and things like that, simply based off of what they hear. They don't have to see the performer to judge at all of how good they are as a musician. The same could go for auditions for conservatories. I think that this should be done where all auditions for conservatories, the performers, those who are applying, are behind a screen. That way, the professors and those who are deciding whether they get accepted or not can't see them, but simply only hear them. So personally, I think that this would solve a lot of issues if you just have blind auditions for everything, because then their social, racial bias factors could not get in the way of accepting a person to a college or to a competition or to an orchestra position. So I just think that we should just adopt this practice, not just for orchestra jobs, but for everything in music that has an audition. And I just think that would solve a lot of problems. Let me know what you think. Please subscribe. Keep spreading classical music through the world.